You know, I can never decide if I want the top of my head to be in the frame or not. Hello everybody, I'm Roxy, this is Recommend and today I bring you the mid-year freakout tag. I wasn't tagged by anyone. I just thought I would do this year because I've been on BookTube very consistently this year. I'm very proud of myself for that, and I just wanted to do it. I did it, I think here or maybe in my long forgotten channel in Spanish a couple of years ago. Never really kept up with it, and now it's something I want to incorporate into the channel every single year because it's a great tag and I really love watching other booktubers do this tag. I forgot who the tag creator is, but I will link their original video down below. It's just such an old tag that I keep forgetting. But anyways, let's just get into the questions for this tag. I actually wrote the questions down, so I'm prepared now. Number 1, best book you've read so far in 2020. 2020 has been such a great year. This is a really long list. So first is So We Read On by Maureen Corrigan. This is about the Great Gatsby. It's about its creation, but also its significance. It has a small memoir aspect as how Maureen Corrigan is conducting her research and how she goes to talk to all these different types of crowds about the Great Gatsby. It's amazing. It talks about Fitzgerald's life, and then after Fitzgerald's life, how it became the enduring classic we know today, for which I'm extremely grateful. Anyways, I love The Great Gatsby so much, but this is about So We Read On, which is literally the kind of book I hope I can write one day. It's just so engaging and so approachable, but also so informative. It's just so good. Then Little Blue Encyclopedia, which is a fake memoir slash TV guide of a fictional show called Little Blue. It's about this trans woman who's mourning the death of her best friend, who's also a trans woman. And it talks, of course, about the trans experience, but it does so through talking about why Vivian, the dead friend, was so enthralled with this fictional show, which is bonkers, by the way. And it's all framed as this memoir to process grief. And it's just so realistic, the voices are so on point, and it's just so good. And the show, yes, it's crazy, but it's presented in a way that you can't believe there was like a cold show that was like this. At some point, they have an excerpt from a memoir of one of the actors that was in the show, and it's a completely different style, it's a completely different voice, so it's just so well done. One of the best books I've read actually my entire life. I actually did review this book for my blog, so you can check that out down below. Another book that I wanted to mention as one of the best books I've read this year is Get in Trouble by Kelly Link, which is a collection of bonkers short stories that are just so inventive, but also so well done and so unapologetic about thrusting you into these crazy worlds where the emotions are actually quite mundane, but the situations are crazy, and it's just so well done. And I actually think about these stories a lot. Also, this is kind of a spoiler from my June TB wrap-up, but I still couldn't not mention them, and those are Anna Karenina, for which I've already written an entry on my blog, link down below, and Debussy's Paris, which was also really good, and I'll get to geek out about it in my July wrap-up, so look out for that. That was a non-fiction book, by the way. Best sequel you've read in 2020. I don't usually read series, but actually in June, and this is another spoiler, I read Are You My Mother by Alison Bechdel, which is the only sequel that I've read. It's the second memoir in this Fun Home / Are You My Mother duology, talking about Bechdel's father and mother respectively, and I adore this. If possible, I loved Are You My Mother more, not because it's better necessarily, it's just it resonated with me in a more personal way. This is, as I said, Bechdel dealing with the writing of Fun Home and with her relationship with her mother through psychoanalysis, which is fascinating. Really recommend it, and I'll talk more about it during my June wrap-up. Number 3, new release you want to read. So I don't usually follow new releases like at all. I never see the catalogs or anything, but I do have an Bookstagram, and there I find out about new releases sometimes. And same with Twitter. There is this fabulous book called Braver Than You Think by Maggie Downs. It's a memoir about Maggie taking the trip her mother couldn't take because she sadly passed away, I think, from cancer. And they had a good relationship, but they had been a little distant. And it was just a way of getting to know her more, of connecting with her. It's fascinating. I actually went to the Zoom launch of this book, and it was hosted by Todd Goldberg from Literary Disco, which is my favorite literary podcast and possibly my favorite podcast period. It was such a great event. The questions were so amazing, and she read a bit from it, and it was so good. I don't think I'm going to get it this year, but I definitely do want to read it eventually. And then 4 is most anticipated release for the second half of this year, and usually I wouldn't have an answer for this either, but just yesterday, I'm not kidding you, yesterday I saw this graphic memoir called The Times I Knew I Was Gay by Eleanor Cruz, who I didn't know, but she's apparently a London-based illustrator. It's about coming out over and over again and how your identity is not something very fixed, but it's something that is constructed through all of these experiences that are cumulative. It sounds so great and humorous, but also like it will resonate a lot with me. Once again, I don't think I'm going to get it right now just because I need to read my own damn books, but I am very excited for it. Then number 5, biggest disappointment. I've had so many this year. But definitely my year of rest and relaxation. I thought I was going to adore this book. It ticked all of the boxes, but in its execution, in its writing, I just couldn't get into it. I might give it a second shot, but for now it was a DNF. And yeah, I talked about it in my April reading wrap-up, so you can check that out down below. It was such a big disappointment. I'm still very salty and sad about that. Biggest surprise. That was actually Close Range by Annie Proulx. I had never read any Annie Proulx before that, and I didn't know what to expect because it's not the usual type of literature that I read, but it was so good. So I guess it is. But I'm usually a much more urban setting kind of reader just because I'm an urban setting kind of person. But no, this was amazing. Brokeback Mountain, which is the story that prompted me to pick up the collection, was amazing. It clenched my heart. But there were so many others that were so great. And actually the story before Brokeback Mountain, right at the end, it's flash fiction, you could call it. It's a bit longer than that. It's like a page and a half or 2 pages, and it's chilling. It's wonderful. So yeah, I really recommend this book. I didn't expect to love it as much as I did, but I did, definitely. Then favorite new author, which can be debut author or new to you. And new to me, I just want to talk about Pedro Lemebel, who was a Chilean performance artist and author. I read only one book by him, I gotta admit. It's called My Tender Matador in English. I also talked about this in my blog, so you can check that out down below. It's an amazing book about a gay man who forms this charged relationship with a young college guy. Oh, and the man is older. I think he's around 40 something. And the college guy is involved in the left resistance during the dictatorship years in Chile, which is, I don't know if you know this, but it's very recent history. We're talking about 70s, 80s, and 90s as the aftermath. And it's just written in this way that clenches your heart, and you see these ideas of gender and sexuality play out in this revolutionary setting because they are trying to effect real change, but it's so dangerous. And those chapters are intermixed with dark satirical passages parodying the voice of the dictator and his wife, and it's just hilarious and heartbreaking and so incisive. Pedro Lemebel is such an important figure in Chilean literature, and I had never read him because I was afraid I wouldn't like him. I don't know why. I thought he might be a bit too cheesy for me in his writing. I was so wrong, and I don't know if you've ever heard about him. I hope you have before. He was kind of a big deal in his time. He did travel a lot to Europe and especially the US. He taught in colleges and he gave some lectures, but he's not the most well-known Chilean author, but he should be one of them. He should be up there. He's so good, and please read him, and I can't wait to read more by him. My Tender Matador is his best-known work, and they are releasing a movie. I don't know if this year or next year, but the trailer is out, and I'm going to link it down below so you can check it out because it's so good. The actor that plays the main character is an amazing actor, and I'm just loving it. My Tender Matador is also one of the best books that I read this year. It's just that because I was going to talk about it in this segment. I didn't want to talk about it before, but yeah. The newest fictional crush. This is not as stupid a question, I feel like, as some people make it out to be, because you know, sometimes you read a character or you watch a film and you say, oh, you know, that character is really cool, I kind of have a crush, but I haven't encountered any characters like that. I really liked the spin that, for example, Mark Nash gave it, that you can also have like a crush on an author because of their style. I think I have a massive crush on Dr. Emma Smith because she wrote This is Shakespeare, and she did the Penguin reacting to Shakespearean adaptation series, and I just love her so much. She's hilarious. She has this wonderful sense of humor. She just has this very soothing presence, and if I ever meet her in person, this video is going to haunt me for all eternity, but I just can't help it. She's everything I want to be, and I love that she's so knowledgeable and so insightful, but at the same time, she doesn't take anything too seriously. I just love that kind of professor, and it's the professor I aspire to be in my life. And go read This is Shakespeare if you like Shakespeare, because it's my newest favorite character, Jean Brody from The Prime of Miss Jean Brody by Muriel Spark. I talked about this book in my May wrap-up. It was really, really good. On top of that, the character herself was just a revelation, and to think she was written when she was written, as well as all her pupils, that's just great. Kudos to Muriel Spark. I must read more by her. Most beautiful book that you've gotten or received this year. One I don't have here, and the other I'm about to get up and get, so Classic Penguin, cover to cover. This is edited with an introduction by Paul Buckley and prefaced by Elda Roeder, and a foreword by Audrey Niffenegger. This was given to me as a Christmas present, but I got it this year, so it counts, by my friend Danny, who was, as you know, in my Little Free Libraries video, so I'm going to link that down below. And this is what it sounds like. It talks about penguin cover design, and I am fascinated by book design. Yeah, I love penguin designs in general, and I'm very interested in reading this book. Actually, might pick it up this month, even though it was not on my TBR, because this video just made me excited about it. The other book I want to shout out, I bought it last year, and I sent it to my friend's house in Seattle because the shipping was too expensive, and so when I went to visit her, I brought it home. And this was The Fairytales of Oscar Wilde, the Beehive book editions, illustrated by the amazing Yuko Shimizu, who you know is one of my favorite illustrators of all time. It's just such a wonderful book, and although I technically bought it last year, I received it this year. And I'm going to leave the link to Beehive books down below. They are like an independent press that specializes on producing high quality, very beautiful deluxe illustrations, and if you find like your favorite classic there, I think it's really worth the investment. Book that made you cry. I don't cry easily with books, although nowadays that I'm more sensitive, that's not as true. I want to shout out Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Lori Gottlieb, which is a memoir of her relationship with her therapist, as well as her experience as a therapist herself. And I love how it's very personal, but at the same time it's about therapy in general, and actually tells you like what you should expect from therapy and how therapy works and how it doesn't sometimes and why. And it's just so interesting, and it's so moving. It has certain storylines, let's call them, that are just heartbreaking. Also, it's very well written. Lori Gottlieb used to write for TV, and so she really has that sense of pacing. It's really a page turner, and it moved me to possibly literal tears. I don't remember, I read this in February, but it's also one of the best books I've read all year. And then a book that made you happy. I've not been in the biggest mood for happy books, I guess because when I want to feel happy, I just reread books that I really, really love. But when I talk about Running by Haruki Murakami, is a running memoir, tying it to his job as a novelist. And I just find Murakami's nonfiction and particularly personal writings just so soothing. I've only read Norwegian Wood and like a couple of his short stories, so I don't have strong feelings about him as a fiction author. But his personal essays always struck me as so inspirational, because he's the kind of person who says I don't care if this is hard or if this is easy. This is what I want to do, and I'm going to take the best steps I can to do it, no matter what people tell me. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. As an overthinker, that's something very calm to read, and it's something I strive to absorb in my life. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book. This is also a spoiler from my June wrap up. Was it wise to record this before June? I don't know, probably not, but we're here, so get used to it. I guess. Finally, what books do you need to read before the year end? Well, as many as I can. I'm on a quest to read most of my books, not because I want to have read lots, although of course I always want to read lots, but unless the world ends, which is, you know, a very real possibility at this moment, but I'm supposed to be moving September next year. It was supposed to be this year, but I moved it. So I just want to read as many of my books as I can, so as not to feel like I left all these books behind. I'll explain later more in depth when things aren't so up in the air. But for now, yeah, I'm trying to read as much as I can. But also, I really need to finish Possession by A.S. Byatt, which I binge read for the most part the past year, but then I had to pause it because something happened. I don't remember what. And now I really want to get back to it. It's just that because it's only 200 pages left out of like 600 or 800, I feel like, well, I'll just get to them whenever, and I never do. I think I'll leave them for Victober because it's about Victorian poets. It's a historical fiction, but I think it might fit the mood. I also would really like to finish Inventing Ireland because I've been reading that since 2018. Whenever I finish that, I'm going to tell you why it took me so long to read it. There are a lot of excuses involved, but yeah. And that is it. I hope you liked this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe and comment. You can answer the questions in the tag. If you've done the tag yourself, do let me know and I'll check it out. I will leave the questions down below so you can just copy and paste them. I will link everything I said down below. See you next time.